So I can't talk anymore about my demise. I
No.
can't.
Heyo, motherfuckers, we're live.
Oh boy.
Greetings.
That's always when you know we're actually live. I say something everybody wishes I hadn't.
All I can say is that this is the third time we started the show, and I'm I'm empty. I'm all
I
ideas.
even see us. Yes, we are actually live now. Okay, so all that nice stuff you said about Jeff Talanian will never be archived. Please say it again.
Jeff Talanian is a pretty nice guy. It's just unfortunate what he did to get out of prison. Sing Sing, though, about 12 years he was there. He wrote Astonishing Swords and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. That's why
I
the name.
Yeah,
I didn't think
that's
that was
right.
physically possible to do, but that story was out there, man.
I know. I tell you. How was Sing Sing? No.
What you
I,
have to do for a pack of cigarettes and Sing Sing,
same thing you got to
even
do in your
repeat.
Gen Con. No, what I said was, and I was being honest. Jeff Delaney has done so many things in gaming. He's such a nice guy and has such a great system that is elegant, has a great mood, is cool. He does it himself. He has this, like you said, survivalist way with a garage with all of his stuff to ship and all of his studio and everything to make sure we all have games in these dark times. And nothing says like bright and shiny like Conan and Hyperborea. So
Thank you.
honestly, and if you want to see authentic independent gaming based on the kind of games we all love, it's Jeff's game. I buy it only because I wish that I had made it. So seriously,
Well, and like I said to you before, when we were not on the air, when we thought we were on the air, I'm a fan of what you guys do as well, and I support your stuff as well. So we're mutual
things like
fans.
Bunnies and Burrows. I would like to praise that one more time. It is a great game. Dr. Sester is a really cool guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah, he really is. I've enjoyed
rabbit
talking
biology
with
is
him at
nasty.
North Texas.
Rabbit biology is nasty. It's all of that book.
Right.
Yeah,
Elizabeth
he is a solid guy. I
Yeah.
have really enjoyed working with him over the years.
So Jeff, what's on your agenda? What games are you working on now?
Um, well, so we were working on a dice project, but a few things happened that got in our way.
Hmm.
Number one, Chinese New Year. And then
Oh
number
yes,
two, there was a virus you may have heard of.
yeah,
Uh,
I
and
did.
so that it shut down China, and now it's basically shut down our country. So the DICE project has been on hold. So we'll probably get to that at another point, but had some cool stuff. The plan is for the DICE project, custom dice that have our company symbol on them, not on the 20, but on the one face.
Oh
Ooh,
no.
Um, yes.
ooh,
Classic
And
mistake.
ooh. That's where I put Skeeter Green Productions logo too. That's awesome.
Wow.
So yeah, so custom dice and also leather dice pouches. I actually have a sample of one here. I've never shown it to anybody except for my wife, but I'll show it to you guys tonight
I want to
and
see the couch
That's
our
now.
okay.
many
Nobody
viewers.
watches this show, so
That's right. Look at that.
that
So it's
Wow.
pretty
that
cool.
is nice.
Is that handmade or is that stamped and ordered or?
It's it's stamped. It's Colombian leather. And it's actually pretty cool because on the inside it has a like a divider on the inside.
Is
So
On
you
the
can put
inside, it's full of cocaine.
right. It's
Divider
a
where you store
Colombian,
cocaine
nothing but
and
the finest Colombian.
the
I'll
dice
Um,
take two.
are the dice the ones you put in like the chemicals and it comes out.
right.
You're smart, dude. No wonder you have money to make games. No,
Well,
I do have a legit question about the game though. When did you start loving Robert Howard stuff?
oh, so yeah, that's a funny story. So when I was when I was about like 9 years old, um, my two brothers and I all shared a bedroom in a very small house. We had like a set of bunk beds, and my oldest brother Bob had his own single bed. And when he got to be like 17 or 18 or whatever, because he's 9 years older than me, he started to complain he wanted his own bedroom. He wanted his own bedroom. So my dad built him his own sort of basement pad. He had like the Greg Brady pad
Okay,
type of
I
thing
saw that.
going on.
Awesome. Awesome.
Groovy.
So it was down in the basement. I just thought it was the coolest place in the world because my brother would have, cranking his vinyl Pink Floyd records and things like that down there. And I'd go down and I would
Yeah.
linger by the door to his room, but he would never let me in, of course,
Oh yeah.
you know. And
Don't you
so
still do that?
It's like Studio 54.
I still do that in the basement. Mom, I want meatloaf.
Yeah.
You're still not letting
Um,
me move.
so anyway, so he had outside of the door to his room, he had this green bookcase, like this old sort of green painted wooden bookcase. And in that bookcase, he had several of the old Frank Frazetta covers for the Conan novels, and other things like Isaac Asimov. It's where I discovered Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
The classic paperbacks.
Pandora's box, man.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's opening some trouble.
to his room. Yeah, and a lot of other like weird things. Like I remember reading like Thor, like Hydral. I forget how you say his last name. He was the one that did the Kon-Tiki voyage from the South. Like he sailed the South Pacific all the way across to prove that that it could be done, to prove human migration or whatever.
Was it I'm okay, you're okay, and other 70s books?
Yeah, I love weird stuff. Yeah, I remember those philosophical books. Yeah. And other stuff like Stalingrad. I remember like reading that when I was young and, just being horrified by the cannibalism and everything.
I know the stuff we read that was, okay.
This makes the titles of your adventures so much more clear now.
Right. So anyway, that's where I discovered Conan. So, I started reading them at a young age. I'm sure I didn't really understand a lot of what I was reading at that point when I was 9 or 10. So I kind of gravitated to the comic books and the savage sort of Conan magazines as well. Those appealed to me so much visually,
Yeah.
Really? Guys, so you wouldn't know it by looking at your fine products that you had.
Yeah, no, that doesn't come across at all.
No, it's funny. I was just saying this to my wife the other day. I was, as we were walking down the street, and I was talking about one of these ridiculous topics. And I said to her, you might be surprised by this, but I actually haven't changed since like the 7th grade. And I said, actually, if you take girls out of the equation, I don't think I've really changed since like the 2nd grade.
Your 7th grade self would be very proud of your
right
47th grade self.
Right.
You're the you in a younger timeline is very proud of you now and very happy.
I know mine is pretty proud of the fact that his favorite book is now behind him on his thing, so he can make sure that everybody gets to see the fact that he celebrates Dave Trempier. So you know how it is.
Yeah, younger version me is still going, I think that's bullshit. Who are you, old man?
Middle version, he was like in the cell wondering how you got out.
Yeah.
Because the 90s in Seattle were probably not the scene I'd put you in.
Those were weird times.
What were you doing in the 90s? Were you playing some games and going to school and getting educated?
In the 90s? Well, I went to college for a brief time, but I dropped out of college after a year. I went to music school. And I dropped out because I decided I'm going to open my own comic book and gaming store. And so I opened up a comic book store and just basically put my entire collection in there and opened up an account with Diamond Comics. I was about like 20 years old and started my own business.
Wow.
And so I did it for about 6 years until the amount of hours that you have to I was just like anyone else. Like I was into it because I was into the hobbies of the gaming and the comics and did baseball cards and things like that in there too. And other types of, statues and things like that. But in action figures, all kinds of the related, nerd type stuff.
Yes.
Right. So
yes, I have an entire room full of it behind this background.
Yes. So of course I loved all that stuff, but what I found that I hated was working 80 hours a week. And so I eventually
You only had to work 80 hours a week? That's pretty good, dude.
Yes, because I didn't work on Mondays. I closed, my store was closed on Mondays.
Wow.
So, and I'm not counting the time that I had to put into before comic book stores started receiving their comic books via UPS. We used to have to go to the local distribution plant to pick up the books.
Oh, wow.
So,
food bank.
Right. So I had to drive into Boston, which was like an hour drive for me, and pick up my comic book shipment. And, it's funny because Wednesday was comic book day. So eventually Diamond Comics decided like the Wednesday rush was too much and let's start opening this up to Tuesday night. But you're not allowed to sell your comic books until Wednesday morning, but you can pick them up Tuesday night. Well, it didn't take long for local stores to say, midnight release of these comic books.
Or hey, we're not selling these yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's what I was up to in the 90s. I had my comic book store, and my wife and I had a kid at a very young age. So I got married in 96.
Ooh,
And
I got married in 97, but I don't have any kids.
Yeah.
You had a
So
hard
yeah, so our oldest was born in 94. So we got married a few years later. So I was busy. I had a wife and a child and a business and stuff like that. But one of the coolest things is that I've been playing with the same gaming group now. We've lost a few people and added a few people, but essentially we've had the same group going since about 1992. And we're still going
That is
every
awesome.
Tuesday.
Since 1992.
Jeez.
Wow. Wow. Actually, because none of the people I played gaming with originally would probably still speak to me.
I don't
They
want
would-
to speak to you now, and
they
we have
find
a
me
show.
like- I'm still doing what they were doing. They're doing all this fancy stuff, and I'm still doing the same thing.
Well,
Right.
that actually is really enlightening as a backstory, because I was going to say you are one of the few publishers I know of that have made a successful transition to just doing this full time. I mean,
Yeah, it was
most people
tough.
have a day job, and then
Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
I did for a while. And I I definitely had some lean years in between the time that I closed my comic book store and I was doing sales online, and I was selling through eBay, and I was doing comic book conventions, traveling all around the convention scene for comic books, mostly going to New York Comic
You're like
Con.
a smaller Mike Battleotto. Wow.
So I was really trying to do a lot of hustling, and the reason why I stopped my comic book store, the main reason why is because I wanted to write. And so I was giving myself more opportunity to write, and I was staying home. I was writing, staying home with my oldest son while my wife was going to school, and she's a nurse.
This is the way.
And
do.
yeah, so I definitely had some lean years there. And even when I was freelance writing in the role-playing game industry in the early to mid 2000s, I was still working. I was working for one of the guys in my gaming group. I was working as a landscaper for a few years. And then I was working in a school as a paraeducator in special ed department for about 3 years. So actually the first year I was like a substitute teacher, and then I became a paraeducator.
So working as a
So-
para, did that help you with convention attendees?
I was already used to dealing with them by that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But
That's on
actually,
brand.
but you know what? It actually, working with the kids, I would say, is easier than some, because you can't like say certain things that make adults just respond to you and stop doing what they're doing because they don't have fear of you.
Right. Yeah.
So they're just gonna do and say what they want.
Yeah, no, I mean, my wife is
You
a
can't
middle
say
school
like,
teacher,
you
so-
can't be like when you're in a classroom and everyone's all the kids are talking around you, and you just decide like, all right, this is chaos. Clap one if you can hear my voice. Clap twice if you can hear my voice. And then everyone stop, and all the kids are looking at you. That's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, no,
And
that
you have their attention. You do, but gamers by and large are like herding cats. But I love them. They're my
My
people.
wife's a flight attendant, and her tricks are like she'll stare until you comply. I just saw a video about a flight attendant working from home, but all that,
Yeah.
like, you do this to me. I'm realizing that she stares until I comply. She'll like, sir, you gotta do it. You gotta do this. You gotta do this. Why? You gotta do this. And I'll be like, okay, I'll do it, and whatever. I'm being passengered.
you're being handled.
I'm being handled.
Right.
Like, sir, you can come back and do this later. Right now, oh, okay. I get fake options. You can do this, or you can do this, but neither one's really an option. These are things they taught her, and I've been 20 years I've been putting up with this. I've been fooled. Anyway, but
That's
yeah,
funny.
teaching hard.
Yeah.
So
So I did that until I reached a point that my small business had grown to the point where I was ready to make that plunge and go full time with this.
yeah, getting off Hyperborea for a moment.
Sure.
For people who don't know, you did a little writing assignment several years ago
That I don't own.
in we'll call it the world of Greyhawk.
Oh yes.
Never heard
Is
of it.
is there is there are there any stories from that time that you are legally able to tell us and would like to regale everyone with the tales
Well,
of your work on
I'm
Greyhawk?
sure. Well, I'm willing to talk about any of that stuff. The only thing that I'm legally bound to not talk about is um, the stuff that we didn't publish is that was never released to the wild.
We'll
That
talk about
was
that offline.
No, she's hired. I thought
so
I
I'm
used
willing. Yeah. So any
to
of that stuff,
work
I'd
for.
be happy to talk about. It's not Greyhawk. It's Castle Zagig. For
Right.
those who don't know, it is basically Greyhawk with the serial numbers filed off, and it was Gary's vision for the Greyhawk Castle, which he termed Castle Zagig.
Right.
And so yeah, so I worked freelance for Gary for a time.
And
From
you're like, who is this dude or whatever, or were you like totally geeked?
I was totally
I
So
never got
I
to
was
meet him.
so pumped
yeah,
to
I
do that.
mean,
It was like
being a gamer and then having that opportunity. How did that even come about? Did
I
you
kind of
contact him? Did you get contacted? How did that work out?
I kind of stumbled into it because I was doing a lot of writing at the time, and I was actually in a mode where I was working on a lot of short stories, and in addition to that, I was working on my campaign materials for my own Tuesday night home group. And there came a point where I decided, like, you know what, I want to kind of switch gears here. I want to go back to some of my roots in gaming, of stuff that I did when I was a teenager. I want to run a Greyhawk campaign. So I was collecting up all my whole old Greyhawk materials and pouring through them and everything. And of course, then I went online and I decided to start researching some stuff on Greyhawk. And I don't know how it happened, but I stumbled into Gary Gygax's call for freelance writers to contribute to the Igsberg project. And I looked at it and I said,
What?
what is this? And I said, well, I'm going to give this a shot. So I picked up
Hell yeah, you are.
the Igsberg hardback book, which was volume 1 of Castle Zagig that Gary had already published through with the Trolls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I studied
Troll
it.
Lord Games, for those of you who
Correct.
don't know
Correct.
who the
Fabulous
trolls
company.
are. Great.
Yes.
The Chenaults,
And
good people.
yes, they are. And so I studied that intensely, and I decided, like, okay, so I am going to submit to Gary Gygax, one of my childhood idols, a writing sample and a proposal of what I would bring to this project. And so I did that. And I believe I did it on a Friday night, because it was the next Monday morning when I was opening up my email and I saw Gary Gygax in my inbox, and I just stared at his name in my inbox, and I
You
said to myself,
motherfucker.
I said, I don't want to open this, because I thought to myself, like, it's so cool to see this now and imagine that I'd be working for Gary, but I know it's a rejection letter. It can't be an acceptance letter,
No.
but it was, and I got accepted into the team for developing Igsberg, which was which Gary had divided into about, at that time it was about 18 subdivisions, and he wanted
That seems on brand.
right? And so he wanted a resource book for these different neighborhoods, and there was actually more than that, because there were 4 more that were outside of the town. So it was actually 22 projects in total.
Wow.
So there was a team of about 12 or 13 of us that were on this project. And what happened as working for Gary and getting his outlines of what he wanted for each of these projects, and basically style guides and things like that. Eventually there was the issue of other freelance writers not making some of their deadlines, or dropping off from the project, as it were.
I had heard about this.
So I was ambitious at the time and wanted to really prove myself to Gary and be a hard worker. So I volunteered to pick up projects as they were dropping off. And so I was so driven to meet all the deadlines for all those books that I was just writing furiously at that time, staying up late. In fact, I remember one time before one of the deadlines, it was like I still had so much work to do that I told my wife that I needed to go to a hotel for the weekend and just sit in a hotel room with nobody else around me and just type furiously. And that's what I did. And so all of that basically ended up leading to Gary asking me to co-author the main project with him, which was the dungeon. And so I worked on that with him for a few years until, of course, his untimely passing. So that was, basically one of the delights of my life at the time that I cherished, immensely, that I luckily stumbled into this opportunity and had this period of time where I got to, work under greatness.
You don't stumble into that kind of stuff, though. You actually did a lot of things to get there. What I think is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to see the greatness part. Then you got to see what happens when greatness has relatives.
Right.
And although it's neither good nor bad here and there, you got to learn something great, and you went and made something awesome with that, with your skills and your ideas.
Yeah.
I bought Rats in the Walls from you, Gary Confor, and I just loved it.
Oh, thank you.
And about the
box,
that was great.
Yeah, I've been a huge Lovecraft, but it's funny because Call of Cthulhu, I actually, it was my buddy Bob who I gamed with when I was a teenager, and he recently came back to our group, so I'm gaming with him again now. So I've actually been gaming with him since the early 80s. And Bob brought Call of Cthulhu to our gaming group when I was a teenager and introduced us to it. And it was actually, I thought it was so cool that I went out and started reading the short story. So I actually.
So you started with the game.
I started with the game in
Wow.
in around 1983 or 84 before I started reading the stories.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the stuff that you have written for Hyperborea and Greyhawk and everything is just top shelf. I mean,
thank you so much.
You piss me off because I mean, it is. Yeah, it is definitely setting a high bar for people.
Oh, thank you. You guys are too kind.
You are, and you know me, I am definitely not trying to kiss your ass. It is.
I know.
Really, it's really good stuff. One of the things that's interesting about Hyperborea, you're the only one that writes for it. Is that correct?
No, I have other writers. Yes.
No, he makes it look like he's that good, but he actually has.
I mean, I have my hands on all the adventure modules that that we publish, but by no means have I written all the adventures for it. I've had some great help along the way. In fact, I have a manuscript in now that I've been going over from a gentleman by the name of Ben Ball, who wrote Beneath the Comet for us in 2015, which has been one of our more popular adventures. Right. So Beneath the Comet was really popular. It has a great cover too, because it has a Peter Mullen cover, and Mullen is just awesome,
Yeah, he's amazing.
And
yeah, so, he's done some cool stuff. Whatever.
Yeah.
Core book. I love all the stuff he does. He's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ben is back with
a second. Right? Del Tigler? Didn't he work?
Yeah, Del is great.
He's great too. You have a good choice.
Well,
people.
Yeah. Around that same point, around 2015, is when I think that was about the point when we started to expand into more artists and more writers, and that's when I started to.
Oh, you froze.
He started to collect. Oh, you froze where I say you started to.
Okay, so we started to sort of bring the brand all together with a common logo and
It has a
And
look to it that's very, very,
yeah,
very unique.
Yeah, it's very specific.
You see it at a game store, you're like, hey, that's a Ash.
yeah, exactly.
But
That's
you
what I
know that
want.
when you
I
see it.
want
That's not true with
because
everything else.
yeah, that's not by coincidence. I want to have that sort of brand recognition that's easily identified by our
You got it.
small niche of a niche
You
in
got
this
it. Wizards
hobby.
got it, and Wizards got it, and that's about all I can think of that look to me. I see the book from a distance, I know what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I would say like in the in fairness, in the last year or so, I think that you guys have really honed in on it with the Frog God stuff, and it's definitely you've created an identifiable style with what you've been doing.
that's 100% of that is all Matt Finch because he's a one-man machine. No, seriously, we made conscious decisions and worked very hard, but we have a lot of talent and we certainly have a lot of people helping. We have like 45 people we work with now.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's
And
ridiculous.
Skeeter, Crypt of the Science Wizard. I mean, the way you guys set up that cover, that was just like that's completely right up my alley.
No, his is. I don't like to praise Skeeter either, but I really like Chris Science Wizard, and I like the theme behind it. His illustration book is so awesome. I wonder where he learned it. It's so perfectly not derivative, but a very much a tribute to what I love the most of the old modules. Skeeter did a great job.
Yeah,
Fortunately,
that was fantastic.
we learned the other day on the internet the law of advertising. Skeeter has his own business school law of advertising. Doesn't advertise and eschews it.
Yeah.
So,
I released Fantasy Grounds version of Crypt of the Science Wizard, and in the first quarter of 2020, I have sold one. And when I made that post, our good mutual friend Ian McGarty said, "Yeah, you're doing your typical no advertising at all, right?
Skeeter Green strategy.
The Skeeter Green method is to not advertise at all, and then
Don't
wonder
talk
why
about
nothing
yourself.
sells."
Tell us what's going on.
Put it out there and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's just kind of like throwing rings at the bottles at
Yeah.
a carnival. So
Which is
It's
funny
tough.
because I just found that photo of me where they talked about Whisper and Venom saying the only thing you've ever heard of this guy for is self-promotion. That makes
Yeah.
Skeeter and I different.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Well,
that is not my thing.
I think there's a line between, on the business side of things, I think there's a line between not doing it at all and overdoing it. And I've seen at points where I can recognize that I've been overdoing it because when I use some of our email, we use, it's at MailerLite. I forget what it is. Or it's not Constant Contact, but it's one of those.
One of those
You can go into your account and you can see how many people unsubscribed.
Yeah, don't do that.
So if you send emails, every day, you're going to end up getting a lot of people who say that's too much. I don't want to.
I unsubscribed from Frog God's email before they hired me. I didn't tell anybody that story, but I did because I was like, I got one every day. I'm like, I want to buy stuff, but I can't every day, man.
Right.
See now, prostituting oneself sounds right up my alley, but I don't do it enough.
Unfortunately, you have shame, and it surprises us all.
Yeah, I don't think it's shame.
Well, it's certainly not credibility. Anyway.
Yeah, it's none of these words you're saying. I'm not sure what they mean, but yeah, I don't think that's it.
No, but yeah, you're right. And it's hard as a one-person operation to realize the whole world doesn't obsess over your little function like you do.
Right.
When I did the Kickstarter with Whisper and Venom, it's all I thought about for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, all of it. And I realized that half people who knew me in person didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
Let alone people a long way away. And I was lucky to do Kickstarter when I did, because I think now I wouldn't be able to do Whisper and Venom. And I think that your box would have been easier to do because of the system and you'd work with other people, but you had been very successful with it and you use it very sparingly. And I think that's something that I think is admirable, to be honest with you.
Well,
so Jeff, sell us on making a box set.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm not going to tell the story again, but he is not everything perfect. I promise you that. He tells you the truth, but doesn't tell you the whole story. He's kind of like the guy at Needful Things, the monkey's paw. It's like, yes, you can make a box, one thing.
Right. Yes, he had all the
Look at this book. It's huge.
Right. It's 616 pages.
Man, I didn't think people made books that close to what Bill and Frog God did, but that approaches our bigger ones.
That is a stout book.
It's large. I'm not sure, but I think DCC is about the same amount of pages. Um,
Yeah,
but
there's some big books.
1194. We actually had a cutoff by region for the blight. So I know,
wow.
and it's something. It's big
At
books.
what point do you say this is 2 books?
Yeah, but it's still,
Probably should have been then.
Oh boy. Anyway, so I like to talk, but so your book is great. No, honestly, what my question would be is, did you think that there was that much Hyperborea like fandom to support your game in the way that it had shown, like from the groundswell up? Because Modifius as a Conan game is beautiful. I'm not seeing at the major market if that will penetrate the same way as yours did. You know what I mean?
Well, one of my philosophies is that I keep it small. So I'm not trying to jump into the pool of the distribution chain. I sell direct to customers, but I also wholesale direct to stores. So I'm not working with any middlemen. So I'm able to keep it small, but keep my profit margin enough that I can keep business going. And so, and
well,
I treat
down, you're still shipping. No one else is.
yeah. So, and I treat my freelancers very fairly, punctual with, how I pay them and send them compensatory copies. And so I think that, you set up a whole a business practice of what you believe, that sort of your ideal way of running things if you're going to do it on the small scale, such as that I'm doing it. So I am able to skate along and do this thing. I do think that my game has benefited a lot from this recent explosion in gamings. I think in gaming in general, I think, what 5th edition has done for gaming. And, I know a lot of people will criticize it, but the various famous people that have gotten into gaming that are, showing their games online and the advent of these.
Critical Role. You can say it's okay. They won't come talk to us.
Sure. Well, anybody, you could say Joe Manganello and different people like that. And so I think that all of that has shown me that my audience isn't limited. It's still potentially growing. So what I was going to say is, I think if you had asked me about 10 years ago about what I do for a living, if I would say that, yes, I have this hobby business, but it's a dying hobby. 10 years ago, I would have thought that tabletop gaming is a dying hobby. I love it. My friends love it. You guys love it. But I felt like, okay, what is going to be the state of it when we're all in our late 50s to early 60s? Are there going to be anyone new in the pool playing with us? Or is it just going to be us? So I was thinking,
it's not
we
us.
are a dying breed.
Actually, we have a chat question that ties in perfectly with what you're saying right there. What advice would you have for small indie creators or publishers who are looking to make their mark in the hobby? More conventions, productivity, diversify, specialize. What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out?
Well, the first thing that I would say is, whatever you're doing, it has to come from your heart. You can't try to say, like, what type of market can I corner, or what angle can I come in at that I can be successful. I think the first thing you have to do is have a creation that you are personally passionate about. And if you really believe in what you do, and you have something that you feel is unique and something that you can bring to the table, or it doesn't even have to be completely unique. It could be your spin on something that has traditional values. Whatever it is, it has to come from you first, your passion to create. And I think that if you're enthusiastic enough about it, and you explore it enough, that you will find that there are others like of mind. When I first started my own game, and I at some point I said, I'm going to start a Facebook page for this. And, you create a Facebook page and you sit there looking at it like, okay.
People to actually show it, no one's there.
Right. I have a follower, cool.
I give away free miniatures just so people would follow me.
Right. So, I think that, like I said, I think it has to come from the heart first. You have to really believe in what you do and be passionate about what you're doing, And that's
well, screw you, Talanian. That was a great answer. There is nothing that you don't do well. Now you're seriously pissing me off.
One thing I can add to that: inauthentic is the loudest sound you can hear, or the worst smell in the world when you see a game and it's not authentic. If I say, I'm going to make the world's greatest anime game, I don't know anything about anime. I know it's popular, so I'm going to go right one. You can't do that.
Right.
Even with money, you do it badly, right?
Right.
You have the authentic part. If you build it, they will come if it's a good product you worked hard on. And I think you're the best example of, I have a passion product about a 60, 80-year-old pulp character that I really love. And you know what?
Right.
I find that your game is way better than licensed games because it actually brings parts of it and the feel to it you just don't always get from flashy art and people who write it that aren't actually care about Conan. They care about writing, which is okay.
Yeah, the authenticity and integrity in Hyperborea is very evident, and I can prove that it's evident because whenever there are games
always full
for your system, they are packed.
And even if you're not running them.
And the couple of times I've gotten to be in games for Hyperborea, one was with Tim DeShane.
Oh, Tim does a fantastic job.
Which I absolutely loved that game.
Morgan Hazel's better.
But I think it was North Texas when I was in a game with you, and the absolute glee you exuded when you killed my character was worth beholding, because it was like your entire head just opened up into a giant smile. Kind of like that. Yeah. It was great.
That is a complete lie. I derive no personal pleasure from pulling
that is a falsehood. And who are you going to believe, Jeff Talanian or me?
You can also go with somebody like neutral, like everybody else.
Yeah. No, it was. I have never heard a bad thing about any of the games I've even had the opportunity to watch. Everybody has a great time. I think you have really hooked into like-minded people, and I'm not going to suggest you have a cultish following, but your game has a cultish following.
Fanatic,
I mean,
it's cool. It's like
very, very into it.
You've
cool really nailed it.
People I like want to hang out with are people who are running your games, right? That's not true of some of my games because I run them and no one's interested.
That's not true at all.
No, but when I played Morgan Hazel's game of the Yetis want your women or stole your women.
Oh yeah. He runs great games. He is so prepared. I get jealous.
Stone Age tribe of Inuit would be that interesting at 13th level. It was so awesome. Everything about it was fun.
Time out. What is the 3-minute timer?
The 3-minute timer? Oh, that must be one of the guys from my group.
It's DeShane. It's DeShane.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so the guys in my group, so they seem to think that I've treated them unfairly at one point because of a TPK that happened to one set of their characters. So in my home game, all my players have 3 or 4 different characters. And so we sort of campaign jump to different sets of characters with this group is in one part of Hyperborea and this group is another. And there's been some intermingling of the groups over the years. So anyway, this one particular group. So I have a lot of sort of weird sci-fi elements in my game, right?
Really?
Ancient Atlantean technology and things like that. So the I was running for my group my own modified version of the anomalous subsurface environment. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Patrick Wetmore's adventure module, but he writes some great stuff. Yeah, so it's great. But I I am a consummate tinkerer. I will take a module and say, this is really cool, but then I change so much. I change the inhabitants, I change the motivations, I change things that are in certain locations. So I turned it into an ancient Atlantean outpost, okay, that my group was exploring. And in this ancient Atlantean outpost, they found an old rocket, an Atlantean rocket that had been paused in its launch sequence.
Oh boy.
So they proceed to just start pressing buttons until they can figure out how to launch the rocket.
This has a very Planet of the Apes feel.
This feels like
right. So they press buttons until they get it to launch, and they all get in. They put I described to them the different chambers that are in the rocket ship, sort of these stasis chambers with belts and stuff like that they could get into. So they do it. And so at one point I asked them, I said, so what languages do your characters speak? Look at so they're all like, typical players. They're looking at their character sheet. I don't know what languages I speak. They're looking on their sheet. I'm like, does anyone in this group speak Atlantean? Does anyone pick that language? Because it's one of the character races in the game. And, we've had a lot of people who have played Atlanteans in my campaigns over the years, and probably this people that, do it in other campaigns as well. So anyway, long story short, nobody read Atlantean. So they are in a rocket ship and nobody knows how to read anything. They can't read any of the controls. They don't have any spells that allow them to decipher anything like that. So they're just blindly flying. So they're flying
typical
in
adventurers.
Space. Yeah, so Hyperborea is close to Saturn, okay? It's almost like a moon of Saturn, you could say. Flat Earth realm that sort of, Saturn is always huge in the sky. So they're flying to Saturn, en route to Saturn, and they start to get closer to where these different objects are floating. And so there's a comet coming at them. And so they start mashing buttons again, and their ship is ultimately pulverized. And so the timer came into play. I had one of those sand timers, and I put it on the table. Well, maybe did I use a sand timer? Or did I use my phone? I may have used my phone actually, and said, this is how long it's going to take for this, this object in space to collide with your craft. What do you do? And they're all trying to come up with different ideas, and the timer's just going. And then
hold them to it. Oh boy.
As players are wont to do, they start arguing with each other about something that's off topic, probably.
You did TPK them, they killed themselves.
Right. So, but they blame me. They think it was mean. Like, how could you put a rocket in the game and not allow us to fly to some other planet with us? Well,
why do you fly a rocket like it's a Mortal Kombat controller?
So they all died.
Jeff, I'm with you on this one.
I'm not going to say a very similar thing is under the ground of Crypt the Science Wizard, but something very similar is under the ground of Crypt the Science Wizard, which is totally weird that the 3-minute timer story comes up now. Yeah. So that is crazy. We have another question.
I only had pixies and Whisper Venom. They were addicted to drugs. You guys have cool things like UFOs and cool technology. I just had drug addicts. Great.
Jeff, who would you say, besides Gary, is one of your greatest influences in RPGs, specifically speaking to your style of writing? Is there anybody you've emulated or?
Well, I wouldn't say emulate, because I'm kind of like a sponge. I read stuff that I enjoy, and, I take inspiration from different elements that I like and leave behind things that I don't like. So I'm kind of all over the place, but I would say Tom Moldvay. I really loved Castle Amber. Rob Kuntz's stuff I've enjoyed quite a bit. For a current writer, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gabor Lux.
Yes, we are familiar.
Some really weird stuff. Yeah, so he does some great stuff too. I'm really.
He wrote the Cloister of the Frog God in Rappahatnock.
Yep.
Okay. Yes.
He did the Tegel Manor conversion to 3.5 that we. Yep.
Yeah, but his Fomalhaut stuff that he does for his own campaign setting, I think he does a fantastic job. So not necessarily just people who are, famous in the industry, but also, contemporaries now that whose works I enjoy. Um, I was a I was a big fan of the original basic set by Dr. Holmes. That was one of the major influences on me because that was
Oh, yeah.
my first
Your set.
D&D.
Yeah.
My parents bought that set for me from the Sears Wish Book catalog.
Awesome.
So that's how I started my D&D, and then I saved my paper route money and
Oh boy.
purchased a Dungeon Master's Guide. Well, I don't remember. Was it $10 at the time?
12, I think 10 for the players.
12,
But
okay.
Yeah.
It was expensive. You're like, wow, that's 2 weeks of work.
Right, because I think at the time the newspaper cost like $1.70 per week, and most customers would give me like $2.
$2.
$2, right? Remember that?
$2.
Right. So
You know, throw it right on the step, but they would complain about everything and then hand you like dimes, right?
Yeah.
right. So
Throwing
between
nickels
buying,
at you.
That would be illegal
so
now for kids.
I had to take that 30 cents per customer per week and apply it to so many cool things, heavy metal cassettes, comic books, and role-playing games. I had my priorities.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I saved my paper route money and I bought a Dungeon Master's Guide. And I used to run my games just using the DMG and the Holmes Basic box set. That was my D&D. There was no internet to tell me that I was doing it wrong.
Where it had those little random pieces of a dungeon, and you could figure out how to change them up so it was different. Yep.
Oh, the geomorphs.
No. In the DMG, there was that little section where it had the little drawings.
Yes.
And like I would trace them in different configurations.
Yeah, there was the sample dungeon in there too. That I ran a number of times, and then of course there was the sample dungeon in the Holmes set as well.
Right.
But I took the wilderness
gnome gets eaten. It is horrible. Gnomes are cool.
No. Nope. You weird bastard children of elves and dwarves.
Well, it's okay because after my time, as everybody knows, the cleric in the red box, I don't know that one, but I know the stuff from before. So
that's funny.
Jeff, tell me this: if you could have written anything in the past that's been done by another company, you wish you had be able to put your own spin on, what would you have picked? Not D&D.
You mean like a licensed property?
Maybe, or a product that was unlicensed property that you saw that was great and you wished it had been you.
Oh, jeez, that's a tough one.
Zach asks a good question. Yay! Good job, little buddy.
I think the idea of, what Chaosium did with Call of Cthulhu was great. I think the way I've always thought it's one of the toughest things to pull off in a role-playing game is to frighten your players.
Horror. Yeah, absolutely.
Horror is tough to pull off because especially as we get older, we're so jaded. We've heard it all and seen it all. And
I don't know. I did pretty good with Zach's buddies in Arizona when I ran a Call of Cthulhu scenario.
Yeah. He acted creepy. He acted like the person you see on the side of the street you want to walk away from. He did that in the game. It worked great. No.
Yeah, it was pretty fucked up.
Some of the other stuff that became so obvious to me, like this one may seem kind of stupid to you, but I thought it was so cool. The Zork games, the text-based sort of a choose your own adventure type of text game. When I was in high school, I think we were programming in BASIC, and I created my own Zork game. And I just thought that was one of the coolest things ever. I made I did this whole like haunted house for Zork. And
the choose your own adventure style of writing and not knowing, there you go. All of that stuff is innately terrifying because you don't want to blow it. There's so much pressure.
Right.
There's a house to the west of you. What do you do? No,
exactly.
I go east.
I
think
you can't go that way. It's blocked. No, interactive fiction was very cool because it was the only way you could solo play these games.
Yeah, so that would be something that I would think like, oh, I wish I had thought of something like that. I loved the choose your own adventure books. I thought that was so great. I think before I even read choose your own adventure books, I was sort of fascinated, I think by about the second or third grade, I was fascinated by Encyclopedia Brown. So
I
I
remember
heard of
Encyclopedia
that.
Brown. So you would read
Here's a
these
smoke red.
stories in which he was this genius kid who would solve these mysteries, but how he would do it, you had no idea until you flipped to the back of the book and it said, "How did Encyclopedia Brown do this?" And then it would go on to explain like all the different things that he noticed that were key giveaways in the story that allowed him to figure it out. And I thought that was like a brilliant concept, even
Well,
from a
that's
young
actually
age.
a great way to learn to be designers, to know the clues you provide and where are more important than the how sometimes. Yeah. Awesome.
Right.
I remember those. You could pick those up and read them. Those were awesome.
Yeah.
The choice between that and like, Judy Blume, it was pretty easy.
I'm gonna go on
Right.
eBay and see if I can find those now.
Encyclopedia Brown.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, the cheapest stuff as a kid, like I have D&D Shrink-a-Dinks are $5. They cost hundreds of dollars now. Hundreds.
Right.
And I
All
love
right,
them.
all right, Zach. We have to wrap up in 3 minutes because of you. So, what are your
My
final
mom is
thoughts?
playing D&D with Bill Webb tonight. Her first game ever. She's playing online in a virtual
Oh
game.
wow.
He bought me my first box set, the Mulvey Cook BX. And I bet she'd known what I would do with my life with it. I'm not sure she would have bought it. No, she's been supportive, but she always wanted to try to play.
Take the
Right.
sleep spell.
I'll help her. I'll help her there. But I said, well, I can probably hook you up. I know people. So I called Bill and said, will you let her be in your virtual game? Hell yes, I will. And so now she's going to do that tonight.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited for her.
New blood.
Jeff,
see.
what would you like to wrap up with?
Yeah, Jeff, what do you do?
What's your final thought for this Thursday in April?
Well, we're obviously living in a strange time right now. I would like to. I've recently got into myself a lot of some of the virtual gaming, and I guess if you're holed up at home and you're jonesing to roll some dice and play some games with your friends, you should really check it out, because I wouldn't say it's a complete substitute for face-to-face gaming, but it's definitely worth like giving it a whirl. And if you game with 4 or 5 people, one of you guys grab a Zoom account, pay for a pro Zoom account and get online with your friends and family and
Would
play,
be
because
money well spent.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
That's
cheaper
my thought
than a
right
movie.
now.
When Bill Webb from My Boss is Frog God runs a game on it and calls it a total success with almost no experience, no one helping, it's possible to do and everybody have a good time.
Yep.
I even dropped in to check to make sure there wasn't on fire and everybody was having a great time. So I encourage
awesome.
everybody to do it. It's great.
That's what I would encourage everyone to do right now. Even if it's only once every couple of weeks or whatever, you go stir crazy being at home right now, the way many of us are.
This is my entire life. The only thing that's changed is wrestling.
Yeah, so nothing's changed for me either, but I know for a lot of people, it's been
we
a challenge.
Like I walked 20 feet, but that's the same commute I had last year.
Yeah.
To the mailbox.
Thank you for coming on, Jeff. This
Yeah,
has
Jeff,
thank you for
been
having me.
awesome.
Hero, man.
Your game is great. You are one of the
thank you so
sweetest
much.
people I've met in this industry.
Oh, thank you. That's very
I
kind.
enjoyed the shit out of selling T-shirts at your booth at TotalCon. That was fun.
That was funny.
It's because you have a clean booth. No,
Yeah.
your packages are like $900 to buy in the aftermarket now in really great shape, or $800. I'm like, that is insane. Please find me one.
Yes.
All right. Well, for this April 9th, 2020 in Virus Central, thank you all for dropping by and saying hi, and we'll see you in the interwebs.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.